Hey, this is Dre with Yourself.Podcast, and welcome, honored guests. Today on the panel, we have David, who is actually joining us today to speak about some childhood trauma and how he manifests that, or not manifests that, sorry, how he has worked through that with his comic art. And I've actually checked out your page, and it's quite impressive.
Okay.
Um, so I just want to. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast. We really appreciate it. My small team and I work really hard to get this going, and I know it takes a lot of effort and time, so we appreciate that. So I just want to dive right in without giving too much detail, unless you want to delve in, but without disclosing too much of the childhood trauma that you went through. Um, Sometimes that's hard to process through words or actions, or just to talk to anybody, especially a stranger. um,
Mhm.
but how do you express it with your art instead of language?
Sure. Well, I want to start off by saying that as a Generation Xer, I had a wonderful childhood. My parents were wonderful people. But as a Gen Xer, there was things that we did had to do that I don't think any other generation had to go through. So as I was developing this idea for a comic book, and I did it when I started doing it, I was 17 years old. So I've had this book for a long, 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 long time.
Okay.
I wanted characters. I wanted the characters to be able to be and feel like people that I knew in my life, and people that I could relate to, and on some level be me also. So all four of the characters are based off people that I know, and their struggles aren't exactly one-on-one reinterpretations of things that I saw growing up or experienced growing up, but it definitely was an opportunity for me to be able to talk about things that happen to people that I know, and that happen to people around me that um, everybody struggles with on some level
Mm-hmm.
growing up. So it was really an opportunity as I started developing the story more and just developing these characters, giving each of these characters a chance to be able to deal with trauma differently. So there's one character that runs away, there's one character that fights, there's one character that kind of hides and he's kind of hiding in his life, and there's another character that deals with everything through humor and
Wow.
realizing that if he pushes it down and makes a joke, everybody laughs and he can move forward without ever having to deal with anything. So it really was kind of coming out of that idea of I wanted something grounded in reality, that these characters could not just punch the bad guys away.
Mm.
The bad guys were kind of their themselves and their own feelings, dealing with the monsters on the inside and the monsters on the outside. So I kind of use monsters and time travel and paranormal as analogies and metaphor for how the trauma that we've dealt with growing up, and how we deal with that trauma.
I see.
Yeah.
That's really impressive that you can interpret all of that, because all of those characters that you've described,
Mm.
I have gone through myself as a
Yeah.
person, and so it's very. I can see where it's relatable
Yeah.
to a certain generation,
Mm.
such as ours, and it. I think Gen Xers are probably, we were in the cusp of uh, living the old days and then being brought into the internet world, and
Yeah.
yet not into social media, but at least into the internet world, where it's like, wow, we can connect with people through chat rooms or things like that, but um, do you think that you in expressing some of those comics, some of the different characters, do you think that there's a part of you in those characters, in
Oh
each
yeah,
one of
one
those
hundred
characters?
percent. Yeah, 100%. They're like I said, they're based off of little chunks of people that I know. I wanted to make sure that while one of the characters I would say is probably mostly me, They all have a little bit of me sprinkled in, a little bit of other people that I know. One of the other characters based off my brother, my older brother. Another character is based off strong women that I knew growing up that were peers, that were um, didn't put up with any guff.
Hmm.
So it was just kind of sprinkling in what I felt would be the best representation of how these characters react, act and react in the situations that I knew I'd be putting them in, which was fight or flight, which
Hmm.
was expressing these huge feelings, and not having a place to be able to put them, so to speak,
Right.
and being able to deal with hard concepts. As I said, we're going to be fixed by a person in tights and a cape punching the bad guy and be done in 24 pages. It's something that was never really going to be fixed, but just something that you had to work through. And that's really how we use each season. There's going to be 4 seasons, 50 issues. 12 to
Okay.
13 issues for per season, and I'm about to wrap up season 3 right now. So it really is kind of going through each season is recognizing that there's a problem,
Right.
and how these students start, or these characters start to recognize that, oh, I'm not okay, and then how they deal with the realization of I'm not okay. Do they lash out? Do they fight or flight? Do they come together and try to figure it out, or do they fight the process of figuring it out? Season 3 that I'm about to finish up right now really was the idea of, now that we've processed, how do we really get to know and understand ourselves, to be able to work through this pain? And I use that through an analogy of time travel, because they're how else can you get to really know yourself in this sci-fi, monsters, paranormal world, other than being able to time travel back into reincarnated versions of yourself.
Right.
So using that idea of really like deep diving into who am I as a person, who are these characters as a person, and getting to meet them in these weird, fun um, past lives, to be able to say, oh, that's why I
Yeah.
do that. That's why I did that. This is why I do this. And really opening it up to not just let me really think about my life, but think about all the lives of
Hmm.
all the people
Yeah.
that have ever lived, to be able to work through the process of forgiving yourself, forgiving others, being the best person you could be, and tripping up and making mistakes as you go. And that's what these characters are doing. They're tripping up and making mistakes, and making wrong choices, and doing things that they shouldn't do, and they know it, but they still do it because they think it's a safer bet for them. And then season 4 is going to be finally pushing past that wall of, I'm going to try to be the best person I can be, tripping and falling as they go, and 12 issues of really starting to be the person that they know they want to be.
Oh, okay. So, when you're in that process, uh, do you ever feel yourself like a little bit overwhelmed with the with the emotion that you're portraying?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. There's been times that, especially when I'm really diving into the actual nitty gritty of each character's abuse.
Hmm.
Because each of I see them as people. I know them like I know myself, like I know my brothers and sisters, like I know my wife. I know these 4 characters, 4 main characters, like they're real people in my life. So when we're diving into the actual abuse that they had to go through, and how they're starting to open up to each other about that abuse, it can be pretty emotional. I try to kind of walk that line of action adventure creatures and chaos, but also real heart and real understanding of how these characters have to fight through what they're fighting through. It's every time a character kind of has that aha moment, I
Hmm.
have to kind of think to myself, with that aha moment, do they embrace it? Do they push it down? Do they tell everybody about it? Oh, I had this great feeling. One of the taglines of the book of The Offspring is, "Where's your safe place?" And as the process of these characters who knew each other in childhood, they met at an alternative school where they were taken away from their families because they were abused, and they meet and they don't always really get along. They don't always like each other, but they know that they are mentally and physically attached to each other, whether they like it or not. So that idea of where's your safe place was these three main characters to start off with, and a fourth comes in, and I'll tell you why in a second. These three main characters are fighting with themselves, fighting with each other, and fighting with these monsters. And then they start to realize that the more they fight each other, the harder it is. So they start to come together. And one of the characters, who is the fighter, who does not want to be involved in any of this, gets to a point at the end of season two, where she into season one, beginning of season two, where she starts to realize that running away, that fighting isn't her safe place. Her safe place is there with these two other people who have gone through similar situations as her. So it's this conversation just in a Winnebago as they're driving cross country after fighting these monsters, and she says, "Guys, after all that talk with therapists, after all the conversations with the people who are supposed to help, they would always ask me, 'Where's my safe place?' And I never knew what they meant. This character didn't really know what they meant about where's your safe place, because I'm not safe anywhere. I don't feel safe anywhere. But now, after all these struggles with these other two main characters, she comes to the realization, now I know where my safe place is here with you two,
Right.
because I know that regardless of what happens, we have each other's backs."
So you see
And then,
yourself
yeah, yeah.
as
And then
as
after that realization, I throw a wrench in the works, and there's a fourth character that blows it all up.
oh, okay.
So,
So you
so just like some people will come in and out of your lives and mess up the works a little bit, I did that for fun.
yeah, yeah. So that was kind of what I was kind of gonna get into was, do you see yourself more as a protector or a confrontation? And it seems like you play both roles because
Yeah.
you are confronting the problem,
Mhm.
and also protecting the characters
Yeah.
and their feelings, but also giving them strength to be able to move on to the next section or to move on to fight off the next monster, as you call it, you know.
Yeah, we're hitting the archetype perfectly. So there's the confrontational person. I can be a very confrontational person.
Okay.
Sometimes to the point where I get myself in trouble. I can be the jokester. Who makes a joke at my own or other people's expense to be able to get out of the situation, especially in my youth. I can be the person that goes, "Oh, this is too much. I'm going to walk away," and I can be the person that just kind of goes along to get along, and doesn't force or doesn't force myself to be able to express my feelings about those things. So those four archetypes are really what these four characters are dealing with, and how they're differently dealing with this trauma that they've had to go through.
Yeah, so it covers the whole
Yeah,
fight, flight, fawn, and freeze
that's it.
sometimes. Yeah, yeah,
Well, you nailed it.
yeah. So have there been pieces that you've drawn or characters that you've created that have ever triggered you, like, oh, this happened to me and I don't know if I want to put myself out there like that.
Yeah.
Like a wound that was too close to you personally.
Um, yeah, a couple times. But there's also been times where I knew specifically I was working out my own thing in a character. I'll give you an example. One of the main bad guys for season two into season three is a character called the Eternity Man, who is just the epitome of selfishness. He also has trauma. He also has problems. He also went through those things that developed him into the person he is as an adult, which was, I'm gonna get mine.
Right.
I'm gonna be selfish, and I don't care about anybody else. I'm gonna do what's right for me, what I think is right for me, and I'm going to just take, which every person has felt that way at some point in their life, I think. So taking that idea that in my late teens, in my 20s, where maybe I wasn't making good choices, the best choices in the world, not to this extent, of course, with this bad guy, but that idea of that, having that selfishness in you, having that streak of take, mine, taking that idea and using it as a villain in a sci-fi series, where these characters are starting to realize, oh, I I've done that. I do that. The selfishness, the take. I've been that person, and seeing it in another person makes you confront yourself to say, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that person.
Right.
So it's the idea of really pushing that idea of that selfishness that all the characters have had to deal with, every person's had to deal with, and using it as a mirror for the four main characters to be able to really see themselves clearer.
Yes, yes. That's very interesting because I have dealt with uh, actually writing independent film,
Mm-hmm.
and when I wrote the genre that I really am into is like psychological thrillers,
Nice.
and a lot of my characters have these same issues that you've built in with your characters,
Mm-hmm.
and I see a lot of myself in those characters too.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they are completely different, but these personalities is how I view it, because I view it when I'm writing, you can be anything, you can do anything, you can say anything. You're like free bird, you know? And
Yeah.
so I appreciate the fact that your characters are independent as their own.
Mm-hmm.
However, they've trauma bonded
Mm-hmm.
with each other, and
Yeah.
so I can appreciate that. And I I sometimes wonder myself too, like when I have written stuff, and I look back through scripts and I think, how how is this going to be perceived, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
in 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 that, how do you expect, or how do you think that that affects you, like how it's perceived? Do you think that it's okay for your audience to basically, kind of in a poetic sense, take it for how they ever want to interpret it, or
Mm-hmm.
are you really trying to pinpoint and say, this is what I want you to see, this is what I want you to feel, this is what I want you to solve?
Yeah, I think that especially since I'm doing it in such a like sci-fi fantasy way, that I think there's always room for a person to have their own interpretation about what the overall arching meaning is. I think, but then there's also the smaller little, micro meanings on the inside too
Mm-hmm.
that are, no matter what, you're responsible for your actions. No matter what happened, you're responsible for your actions as an adult. Once you hit a certain, I would say it's like 16, 17, 18. Once you've hit that, it doesn't matter what happened. You yes, get through it, fight through it, do what you've got to do to be able to be the person that you should be, regardless of what happened in the past. Um, but the responsibility is always falls on the self to be able to be that person that you want to be. Are people going to fall and trip and make mistakes and all those things? Yes, 100%. But part of the overarching idea is the person that you want to be isn't dictated by others. It's the choices that you make. It's the things that you do to be the kind of person that you want to be. And if you want to be a kind person, make kind choices. If you don't care and you want to be selfish, that will dictate how your life goes.
Right.
You will get what you give. And that's really one of the things that these characters, that back and forth of these characters from the good guys to the bad guys, are that I'm really focusing on, to make sure that, while there is, underlining reasons why the characters are the way they are, why they're doing the things they're doing, they are starting to realize as the seasons go on that ultimately they are responsible for their actions,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what else happened, and no matter what else anybody else does. they're responsible for their actions, as human beings are.
Right, right. And so, when you've gone through and say like you've already finished 3 seasons or are
Mhm.
about to finish the third one and then
Yeah.
going into your fourth,
Mhm.
um, now that you're going into your fourth, have you
Mhm.
gone back to maybe season one and have seen what strengths you've gained along the way?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So like I said, I've had this for a while, and I've had this 50 issues mapped out for I'd say maybe 3 or 4 years before I even started. I started doing this about 7 or 8 years ago because I just didn't feel like visually I was ready to be able to be able to communicate what I wanted to communicate well enough. I started about 8 years ago doing some small press stuff for some people and did a couple books here and a couple books there and started to realize, why am I doing other people's books? I think I'm ready. Let's get this going. So it started once I had episode or issue one done, and then suddenly 12 issues under my belt, and now I'm about to finish it 37 issues. It really was like once I started, that snowball never stopped, and it just kept going and going and going. Which now it's now you have to, even I make the joke that even if you cut off both my arms, I'd still learn to draw with my feet
Yeah,
to be able to get this thing done.
yeah.
But I think that um, but looking back, I always try to make sure that even though I have 50 issues planned, I'm not so like strict on myself that I can't adjust if I have a good idea or if something works a little better than what I had written down or had planned. I go back and look at the first 4 issues and go, "Ooh, I could have drawn that better, or I could have, maybe that dialogue was a little clunkier or whatever, just in my mind because we're our own worst critics." And maybe after 50 issues, I'll go back and tweak. George Lucas did it with Star Wars. Why can't I do it with my stuff? Good or bad? I don't know. Whether
Yes.
you like it or not, I don't
Yeah.
know. But I couldn't be more proud of the fact that in this industry, as an independent creator, you oftentimes get people who start, and for whatever reason, time or money or lack of drive, they don't finish.
Hmm.
But just the simple fact that for the last 7 or 8 years, bi-monthly, about ish 2 to 3 months, I put out a new comic book, means that I'm heading in the right direction and doing the thing that I was meant to do. So while I do look back and go, oh, that was a little clunky, I'm very proud of where I've ended up. It's not where I was; it's where I am. So my hope is that if somebody sees issues 1 through 12, and they're like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, they stick with it because it's good, and it gets even better as we continue moving forward.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So your goal, what is your end goal with, is it going to be more seasons? Is it going to be a set of, this is the kind of Gen Xer therapy through comic type of thing,
Yeah.
or
Well,
is there going to be like a diverse direction that you're going to take?
so after 50 issues, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have more stories with the characters. Some of them kind of intertwined inside of the 50 issues.
Mm.
So it's a possibility that I could do, another one shot about a specific character or each specific characters to kind of give a little bit more, a little bit more insight into why they are how they are. I walk through all of that. We meet them at 12. We meet them at 20-ish, and then we time travel back to when they're 12 years old, and then when they first had their first set of trauma, or maybe even their last a bit of trauma that got them to where they need to be for the story. But there's always more story with these. That's why I'm always confused when people are like, I don't like sequels because they already told a story. Why tell more stories with them? Like, well, especially good characters that have a lot of meat on their bones, there's going to be more stories with that character. Superman's been around for 75 years for a reason. Is because that character is not only embedded in society, but all of us. He can be
Yeah.
all of us.
Hmm.
So to be able to say that there wouldn't be more stories available with any comic books that I've created, I think is setting me up to fail as a creator because there's always more there.
Yeah.
So whether it's one of my 24-page one shots, Sock Hop Killer, or Will Aliens Do My Homework, or my last 100 plus page graphic novel, Late and Lightspeed. There's always more there. So I am always looking for um, a way to be able to continue stories with characters that I've created and love.
Have you ever? I'm just in awe of your work
Oh,
because I, coming from the writer side, um, I mean, I do also do art. I do
mm-hmm.
paint and sketchings and stuff like that. But from the writer's perspective, it is very so close to my heart because I have felt the emotions that your characters have been through. I
Mm-hmm.
have worked my own trauma that I've had as a kid through my characters. And
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like, what else can I give to the world
Mm-hmm.
other than myself? I've been giving them over and over, and you can just, like you said, it snowballs
Mm-hmm.
and it can just create more and more and more. Um, One of the things that I like to do with a lot of my podcast guests, and you can agree or not agree, and you're not at all obligated to me for anything, but I like to challenge my guests with something just to
Mm-hmm.
take away for them to think about, whether in a creative way or in a healing way, or just something where they can maybe make their mark here
Mm-hmm.
on this great big rock that we're floating on, a little bit more special or a little bit more enlightening.
Sure.
My challenge to you, if you'd like to take that, is would there be a chance for you to possibly create um, and evolve one of your characters
Mm-hmm.
that simply would reflect just your life, like your own, how, like how you grew up, the
Mm-hmm.
positive that you had in your life,
Mm-hmm.
the goodness of being raised by good parents. Because I can
Mm-hmm.
tell you 90% of the people who are on this panel have never ever experienced that,
Mm-hmm.
including myself. I'm not going to say that I didn't have good parents, because I did have good parents. They were
Mm-hmm.
just very, very young when they actually eloped at the age of 16,
Oh,
and
really?
and then they had me very young. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was like growing up with teenagers basically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I found myself parenting a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if you would sometime in the future
Mm-hmm.
confront something that maybe drew you to
Mm-hmm.
actually drawing these characters,
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
that.
I think that you're kind of hit it on the head there. Especially our parents' generation. My parents were 19, 20, 21 in that realm when they had my older brother. So still very young. My wife and I, we waited till we were 30,
Hmm.
and we've had conversations as our kids were growing up. Did we wait too long? Was 30, 30 was a good number, and I'm 50 years old, and my son's in college. My daughter's about to graduate high school. But other people do it later. Other people do it earlier. Sometimes, it's thrust upon them because of their choices.
Right.
But I think that, no matter where you start from as a parent, there's always going to be challenges and there's always going to be mistakes. Like there is no, like you can read all the self-help parenting books, talk to all the parents in the world about what they did and this and that and the other and all the things about being a good parent or being a present parent or being a loving parent, whatever it is. But no matter what, you're always going to make mistakes, whether it's the heat of a moment mistake or it's something where you're like, oh, I thought that was a good idea, but it wasn't a good idea. It didn't work out for whatever reason. Um, and I think that the biggest thing that my wife and I've tried to always do is just be open and honest with our kids about, oops, I'm sorry, I messed up.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I didn't, that thing wasn't what I wanted to have happen. My bad. I'm a human being. We're all human beings. So let's move forward, and hopefully, you can learn from my mistake, just like we learned from our parents' mistakes. Hopefully, they learn from their parents' mistakes. But as far as me coming up with a story that kind of like rounds out who I am as a person, I'm actually right in the middle of it. I have written. This is my second novel. I'd say novella because it's not a full length like War and Peace novel. It's a novella. Um, it is my second book. My first one I wrote when about 10 years ago. My wife and I moved to upstate New York, and I had nothing. I was substitute teaching, and had a lot of time on my hands. So I'm like, I've got a story for a book. Let's bust it out, and I
Mm-hmm.
busted it out. It was a western called The Last Ride to Tyburn, and my wife makes fun of me because she's like, "You're the only person to write their first book in a dead genre." And I'm like, "It's coming back. It's coming back. Westerns are coming back." They haven't yet, but but the second book that I'm working on, it's kind of based off of um, A Christmas Carol, roughly, not completely, but it's about if a character who did things that I do, draw and tried to make good choices, but didn't always succeed. And if that person passed away, what does their afterlife look like? And how could they use that afterlife to be able to reflect on their choices, the people around them's choices, and how they affected the people's life around them.
Mm-hmm.
And what would happen? What would that afterlife look like when it was all said and done?
Yes.
So it really is like a this is your life type thing,
Mm-hmm.
but wrapping it around this sci-fi idea of if this specific afterlife was a thing, how would it affect the person that's going through that after the trauma of just living?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's
so I'm in the middle of that. I don't have a title yet. I've worked out a couple things, but I'm not 100% happy with the title yet. But it's coming.
yeah.
I hope to have it done by Christmas this year. We'll see what happens.
Well, that would be awesome because that's an amazing concept. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, and I recently saw the movie The Bride, and
Oh, how was it?
well, it got really awful reviews.
I've heard bad reviews, but it looks really fun.
It blew my mind.
Oh, good.
The writing, the
Yeah.
cinematic uh, part of it all. I was just like, it literally kicked my writing,
Yeah.
spidey, whatever you want to call it, like into gear again, because I had kind of, I've been recognized in the industry a long time ago, more than 10 years ago. But I kind of stopped because, like you said earlier, life happens, and you go through transitions. And, in my case, I had some really bad stuff. I lost a parent, and then I had to take care of another parent, and then I had to take care of a grandparent. And so, you know, being a caregiver sometimes kind of deads it. I don't want to say deads, but maybe it just kind of kills your creativity,
Yeah.
and because you're using up all your energy and taking care of someone, But um, that movie was just absolutely stunning, riveting. I mean, it was just perfectly made, and
That's
so
awesome.
I'm hoping that you can not only finish the book, but it would be even greater to find a screenplay writer that could possibly help you make that into a motion picture, because
Yeah.
um, I think that a lot of people, especially now with all the conflict going on in the world, they don't have a lot of hope for after what goes on here, or don't even have a clue if there is an after.
Mhm.
And I would hope that, I mean, I have my own beliefs, but I certainly hope that there is some peace,
Mhm.
um, once we leave this earth, as we all will. Um, and I hope that you're able to make that. And I know that westerns are coming back because Quentin Tarantino just did it a few years
Yeah.
ago.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
um, but so I I really appreciate the fact because I wasn't expecting for you to have so much. I guess I was thinking just the comic sense of it, not necessarily the dialogue that you use and how relatable that is to life itself. Because a lot of people may not see comics as such a deep way
Mhm.
to kind of heal, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and because they see it as, oh, it's kind of cartoonish or it's kind of this or it's kind or
Mhm.
it's, they don't take it as serious,
Yeah.
maybe, but unless it's, something big like DC or something like that, but and it's already made into a film. And I think that those people who really appreciate comic work are really people who love storytelling.
Mhm.
And I think that you're doing a fantastic job of doing that, especially
Mhm.
including a generation that had to kind of basically carry a lot of weight,
Mhm.
emotional weight, and
Yeah.
had to figure out their own way and how to express it. And
Yeah.
I think, like you said in the very beginning, we are our biggest critics, especially artists in all forms and all crafts.
Yeah.
We do criticize ourselves and overthink things,
Mhm.
and I think sometimes there is a point where you just have to break, step away, and then
Mhm.
come back and say, oh, or a fresh new pair of eyes, show it to a friend or a spouse or someone who
Yeah.
cares about you and knows your work.
Yeah.
And so I really do appreciate everything that you're doing for the
Thank
art
you.
world, for the reading, the book world, and
Mhm.
hopefully, possibly even the movie world. I would love to see that come to life for you.
We'll see. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that would be. I really appreciate your time today, and what I'm what I'm trying to do coming this summer, actually, in the direction that we're going, is we're gonna be going back into our episodes and doing kind of like a where are they now kind of thing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'm hoping that sometime soon in the coming months we can check back with you, check to see
Yeah.
how the book is coming along, check to see what improvements you've made with the season 4, or if you've by that time accomplished the whole season. And we hope to have you back with an
Yeah. It'd be
update.
amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this positive energy that is very rare to find sometimes during
Yeah.
these days, and
It can be tough. Yeah, it can be tough. Can I
yes,
plug the website real quick? Is that okay?
yes, I was going to ask you if you could give us your information, where you can be found and where your comic stuff can be found,
Yeah.
any of that. Go ahead and just lay it out.
Sounds great. Again, I'm David from Correct Handed Comics, and you can find The Offspring and all my other titles. I have multiple books out, 36 issues of The Offspring, five one shots, two graphic novels, a Western novella, The Last Ride of Tiber, and a four-issue miniseries called Evolution Utero. And you can find it all in print and digital at my website, correcthandedcomics.com. There's right handed people and there's correct handed people. Correcthandedcomics.com.
Yes, that's awesome because I am also correct-handed. So,
Perfect.
and I find that most people who are the most creative ones, and
We're using all that right side of our brain.
yes, exactly. I appreciate your time and your efforts today, David. Thank you so much for your energy. Thank you so much for what you're doing in the art world. It's greatly appreciated by me, and I'm sure by thousands of others. And
No,
I thank you for
thousands would
coming.
be great.
Or probably millions, who knows? But I really appreciate it, and I wish you to have nothing but great success with your work.
Thank you very much again. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you having me on.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You as well.
Thank you. Well, we really want to appreciate and thank David for his time as he's trying to push that mental health work through his comic work as well. And it's something that it's very rare to find such positive energy from someone who really didn't experience too much trauma personally inside of a household, which is kind of rare to find these days um, in this age group. So let's try to support David and in his endeavors. And again, if you would like to be a guest on Yourself.Podcast, you can reach us through TikTok, Instagram, leave a comment on the video itself, or you can email us at braceyourmentalhealth@gmail.com. Once again, I'm Dre. I'm your host, and let's hope for better days to come and have a good, healthy, happy day. Try for the best. And until next time, that's a wrap.